welcome to this weekly English news bulletin on Ronahi. On Saturday, 25th of January, the People's Democratic Party Deputy Co-Chair Seri Suraya Onder and Ahmed Independent MP Leila Zana visited the Kurdish leader Öcalan on Imrali Island. During the visit, the Kurdish leader stated that the Kurdish National Congress will be one of the most important guarantees of the regional peace. During the visit, the Kurdish leader stated the following about the Kurdish National Congress. The Kurdish National Congress is important. It will be one of the most important guarantees of regional peace and democratization. In this context, most of the barriers to the Congress taking place are not crucial. If all sides take a responsible approach realizing the historical importance of this matter, it can come to fruition in a short time. This will consolidate the Kurds' place in the democratic world and establish a democratic model in the region. The Congress will be one of the most significant steps in this process. About the latest developments taking place in Rojava, the Kurdish leader Öcalan said, "World public opinion should attach great importance and value to the democratic will emerging in Rojava. It will be a guarantee for the whole world, as if the democratic solution in Rojava is not adopted, the disasters that occur will not be limited to the region." The Kurdish leader added that the resolution process in Turkey cannot be treated independently from the developments in Rojava. Moreover, the Kurdish leader Öcalan commented the followings regarding resolution process taking place in Turkey and northern Kurdistan. The fundamental condition for a solution is a democratic constitution. But as regards the method of establishing the key elements of the content and reaching agreement on the fundamental points, a joint negotiated approach is essential. The greatest threat to this will be for the government to take an electoral approach based on percentages. This would seriously endanger the process. The current situation has demonstrated to everyone the urgency of a democratic transformation. Let's move on now to Rojava. Following Jizir Canton, Kobani and Afrin cantons have officially announced the establishment of its democratic self-rule administrations. The three cantons, which are administrated separately, will hold their elections within 4 months. 8 days after the declaration of the democratic self-rule administration in Jizir Canton of Rojava, the Kobani Canton has also declared on 27th of January its own self-rule administration. The Kobani Canton will be administered by Legislative Assembly President, 2 deputies and 22 ministers. The Kobani Canton Democratic Self-Rule Administration Legislative Assembly met on 27th of January at the Kobani Culture and Art Center and declared the self-rule. The assembly meeting began with a minute silence in memory of the martyrs and followed by a speech of the Kobani Canton Legislative Assembly President Anwar Muslim announcing the names of 22 ministers who afterwards took the oath. The Legislative Assembly President Anwar Muslim gave also a list of political parties, organizations and individuals involved in the assembly. 1 day later, on 29th of January, Afrin, the third canton of Rojava, declared its democratic self-rule administration. The president of the canton's legislative council, Haif Ibrahim Mustafa, opened the council session after a minute of silence. Haif Ibrahim Mustafa was chosen as the president of the canton's governing council. Mustafa will be the first female president of a Rojava canton. While earlier, on 21st of January, the Jizir Canton declared its democratic self-rule administration. The Jizir Canton has 3 official languages, a president, 22 ministers, and an assembly of 101 members. All the 3 cantons, Jizir, Kobani and Afrin, will hold their general elections within 4 months. Following the announcement of the democratic self-rule administrations of Kobani and Afrin cantons, celebrations were held across Rojava, Kurdistan and Turkey, with the first celebrations in Kobani and Afrin cities where the administrations have been announced. Following the announcement of the democratic self-rule administration of Kobani Canton, residents of Kobani have come out onto the streets in celebration. In Afrin canton of Rojava, celebrations marking the declaration of the democratic self-rule were held in Afrin city. Celebrations also took place throughout northern Kurdistan and Turkey. In Mersin, hundreds took to the streets and celebrated the democratic self-rule administrations of Rojava. On the occasion of the announcement of the self-rule administrations in the three cantons of Rojava, several celebrations also took place in the cities of Ahmed, Bismillah, Mush, Betlis and Bazid. Southern Kurdistan showed also its support for the democratic self-rule administrations of Rojava. A number of political parties and civil society organizations organized several gatherings. BYD's co-chair Saleh Muslim spoke to Ronahi about the newly formed democratic self-rule administrations in the three cantons of Rojava and said that this democratic model in Rojava provides a solution to the Syrian conflict.
Because it's a part of this democratic self-ruling project which we agreed and decided in the third conference of our party in 2007. For example, in Al Jazeera canton, you see Syriacs and Arabs and Kurds all together, and they are going to rule themselves. We can see in Afrin area, you can see maybe even the women in this administration, this democratic self-ruling. Especially our organizations, it's 40% is the quota for the women. And now the president of this executive committee is a woman, and it's Alawi, Kurdish Alawi, in Afrin.
Moreover, BYD's co-chair Saleh Muslim called on Western countries and Turkey to support the steps taken by the people of Rojava and recognize the people's democratic will in Syria.
Yeah, I think the Western countries, they should know, they should be sincere with this, what's happening in Rojava. So if they are looking for the democracy, this is the democracy, the true democracy, the real democracy. The people themselves, they are able to decide and execute what they have been decided. So what is the democracy more than that? And I think lately we have some writers and some journalists from Europe and from Germany and from France and England and even United States, they went there. And they said this is the true democracy. I am calling the West to come and to see the real democracy. So, of course, we need their help, acceptance. First of all, they should accept it without to think of their Kurds or Arabs or the others, because all the, society is sharing it, even the Arabs, as a nation, they are inside this, what we are building. So they should get support from them.
About Turkish policies toward Rojava, BYD's co-chair Muslim said that Turkey should change its policies and recognize what is going on in Rojava. Otherwise, according to Muslim, they will fail again.
I think they were thinking wrongly at the beginning of Syrian conflict, because they were looking for invasion into Syria. Maybe they decided to do it through Turkey. But their accounts were wrong, and we knew, from the beginning. They shouldn't do it. Now, if they are going to to change their policy or to change their mind, they should recognize what's going in Rojava. Otherwise, they will fail again, because we told them many times, we are not the enemy of Turkey, and we are not going to bother Turkey. We are not, even what we are doing in our land, in Rojava, is just interior problem. And we are not separatists. We are not going to be separated from Syria. We are not going to divide Syria. We are looking for this political solution in Syria in democratic way. All we are looking for is just democratic rights within united Syria, not more. So we are not enemy to the Turkey. So if you support us, maybe in future we can have very good friendship and maybe even coordinating for the benefit of the people of Rojava and Turkey also.
The social contract of the three cantons of Rojava, Jizir, Kobani and Afrin is a set of fundamental principles according to which the cantons will be ruled. The next report sheds light on some of articles of the social contract, which contains in total 96 articles. Article 3 of Social Contract of the Three Cantons of Rojava says, Syria is a free, democratic, independent country with a pluralistic federal parliamentary system. The province of Jizir is shared among Arabs, Kurds, Assyrians, Armenians, Chechens, and adherents of Islam, Christianity, and Yazidis. The relationship between the nationalities and religions is on the principle of fraternity, partnership, and coexistence. While Article 7 says, any city or geographical area in Syria has the right to join the democratic self-rule administrations after accepting the social contract. Article 12. This self-rule is a model of the administrations in Syria and is part of the future Syria, which must be based on the system of political decentralization, considering that federalism is the best political system for Syria. Article 15 of the Social Contract of the Three Cantons of Rojava says the following. People Defense Units is the only national institution responsible for defending the territorial integrity of the three cantons and serving people's welfare. The People Defense Units acts according to the laws taken by the Legislative Council of the self-rule administrations. Article 21 says, the self-management ensures the human rights and its supreme values in accordance with the international conventions and conventions and considers freedom the most precious thing that human individuals and groups own. Article 27 refers to women's rights and says, women have the right to participate in the political, social, economic, cultural, and all areas of life. The social contract of the three cantons of Rojava also ensures the right of children in Article 29 and says, this contract ensures the right of children, prevent child labor, exploiting and torturing them physically and psychologically, and marrying them at a young age. In general, the people of Rojava have described the announcement of the democratic self-rule administration in the three cantons of Rojava as a historical step, while some others saw it as a result of the philosophy of the Kurdish leader Öcalan. Let's move on now to some views of the people of Kobani Canton.
ريكا دولتها مهابالة وغرية من هالبيئة ويا خونا الشيخ سعيد قال بيروبا خونا فاستي
أدبير روجي ملابي كرتا بدأت تارو بابو شهيد كردستان تابدا بيروز سلام رزم حتى لو جلا حياة إمرالي هيا أدبير روجي يبكي يبكي
بربرية وخساري حمو قال الكرد بيروز دكم وطيبات لقال كوباني بيروز دكم وبزم يعني عم بيفينا حركة زي خطرة بربرية دا بقرة وعم بركي بقاس جباركو كرد خواب خود باريزنا يعني خواب خود ربا دبنا.
الاحتفالية التي تجرى بقيادة القائد العظيم القائد عبد الله أوجلان الذي رسم لنا الطريق الصحيح علمنا كيف نمد خطانا في الطريق الصحيح، وها نحن مسكنا الطريق الصحيح ووصلناه إلى ما قبل النهاية.
Let's go now live to Washington, D.C. Joining us from there, the journalist and analyst on Kurdish affairs, Mutlu Siviroglu. Thank you for being with us, Mr. Siviroglu. The three cantons of Rojava completed the announcement of its democratic self-rule administrations. What is your take on this step taken by the people of Rojava?
I think it's a great achievement of people in the region, in Kurdistan of Syria. So it's the outcome of their hard resolve, hard struggle that they have been continuing for over 2 years, maybe even for decades. So I think it's a very positive development. I think the long oppressed Kurds in Syria deserve to rule their own region, village and towns. So it's a very positive step for Kurds in the Middle East, general Middle East, and also a positive impact on other parts of the Kurdistan. And I also believe it's a very positive development for generally overall Syria as well, because you also mentioned in your report, so the structure of the autonomy, the self-management, the way people call it, is very advanced, very pluralistic, it's very democratic. As an individual living in the States, I can relate to the system here. So I think it's very positive for Kurds to declare their cantons, to declare their self-management.
Mm-hmm. You are closely monitoring the Western media and its coverage on the Kurdish issue. How do you evaluate the media coverage on the announcement of the self-rule administrations of Rojava?
The media coverage, not too bad, could be much better, of course. Mm-hmm. But I can tell you that today, Financial Times, one of the most influential newspapers, they just had a very detailed, very rich report about the issue, about the autonomy declaration. So there was the view of PYD spokesman in Europe, as well as other politicians. So also a few days ago, Reuters had a very comprehensive report, very detailed report as well. So it's not bad, but could be better for sure. So, but it's also related to the view of Western world, U.S. and Europe. So until now, the state-wise, in the state level, the states are choosing to ignore what's happening in Syria, generally, and in Rojava especially. So this is a little bit related to that as well. Once they started to really realize, and the media will reflect even more, in my view. But I can tell you that the coverage, not bad. It's good.
Mm-hmm. In this regard, the recognition of this democratic self-rule administration is of high importance for the people of Rojava. Supposedly, this will be on the agenda of the Kurdish politicians. What will be the value of Western countries' recognition of these administrations, and how difficult will it be?
The value is very significant because almost everyone agree that Syria needs a solution, and after 3 years. But nobody knows what the solution is. But on the other hand, what is happening in Kurdistan of Syria is can give us an idea what can be proposed, what can be a model. So, like I told you, the structure of the society is a multicultural society, and Kurds, being the dominant power over there, they choose to embrace the ethnic and religious minorities. This is something very important, something that needs to be acknowledged by everyone. Christians can express themselves freely. The other Arabs can express themselves freely. Internal identities among the Kurds, Yazidis and Alevis, they can express themselves freely. The Cherkezians, so everybody can express themselves freely. This is a significant reality. But on the other hand, on some parts of Syria, people are murdered because they belong to they are Alevis, Nastaris. On the other hand, their churches are destroyed. they are massacred because they are simply being Kurd. But Rojava is opposite, totally opposite. So the Western world, cradle of democracy, human rights, should acknowledge this, should notice this, and should pay the attention that the region deserves. So in this regard, it's very important. Also, this should be the priority of all Kurds living in other parts of Kurdistan as well as diaspora. They should make this their priority to tell people the reality on the ground, the embarrassment. So this should be their priority. So they should tell to everyone. They should talk to their community. They should talk to their people, representatives in the parliament, so that everyone can realize what is happening. This is what I can tell you. But how difficult will it be? I think so far the Kurdish politicians or Kurdish diplomacy makers really have failed to express themselves, to create support and sympathy for their cause in Syria. Maybe fail is a little bit harsh, but they are not as successful as they're supposed to be. So they have to do more to gain the support of at least people of Europe, people of US, Canada, other parts of the world. So they need to do more. This depends on telling your story in the most effective way to the other, so that the others will know really what do you have. So when people don't know what is happening, what is the reality, they have bias. They believe the way others tell them. So the Kurds need to do more to gain support of people. That depends on them to use effective tools like social media tools, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, write more and more, one by one, generally to influence, to make an effect, so that people of the international community will sympathize, will understand what's going on, and would acknowledge, would embrace the situation in Rojava and the achievement of Kurdish people and other peoples in the region.
Move on to Erdogan's visit to Iran. In public, it was all about economies, treaties, and relations. What are the real motives behind Erdogan's visit to Iran? Was there anything about Kurds of Rojava on Erdogan's agenda, in your opinion?
Yeah, like you mentioned, that is the visible agenda: oil and natural gas. But I will I would like to focus on, to me, what is the real issue. I think that's the Syrian crisis is the main issue. Turkey and Iran has been on the opposite edges. These two countries offer totally different, totally conflicting solutions. But at this stage, Turkey's all policies failed. Turkey is the biggest losing part in the Syrian crisis, in the Syrian civil war, in my view. Whatever Turkey suggested, whatever Turkey promoted for, it failed. So Turkey lost its influence over the opposition. Turkey's policies are no longer supported in Washington. And many people now ridicule the foreign policy of Turkey. So now in recent times, Turkey is trying to shift its policy. Turkey has been softening its rhetoric. Turkey has been trying to get more close to Iran. Turkey has no longer very strongly insists Assad should go. Turkey, especially after U.S. administration changed its mind to do an military operation, that's the turning point. So since then, Turkey is isolated in the region and in foreign policy. So on the other hand, Iran has a better, warmer relation with West and with U.S. The sanctions are being lifted. There are negotiations going on. So Turkey feels that it needs to get more closer to Iran, a regional power. So this is, I think, the main power. So what falls to Kurds' share? I think it's a great deal of this Syrian crisis is related to a situation in Kurdistan of Syria. So what is that? The achievement of Kurds, the cantons we just spoke. It's a concern for Turkey and Iran as well. Although these countries are in conflict, they have so many problems. But when the issue is a Kurdish issue, it's not a secret that they can come together very easily. So it wouldn't be hard to think that the situation in Rojava achievements of Kurdish people in Syria. Declaration of these cantons have been discussed in a comprehensive way. So I think in a way, how to prevent this, how to minimize these developments were main topics of these discussions, these meetings between two parties, in my view.
At the end, as announced, there will be a second round of talks in Geneva after about a week, and there are demands to involve more opposition parties in the peace talks. Could the Supreme Kurdish Council make a chance here?
It's possible, for sure, but that needs the will and determination of the Kurds, but I don't see that. I don't see that. The Kurds are divided, unfortunately, although on the ground there is a unity. The vast majority of people are gathered around PYD, but there are still others. And others are trying to gain more political power through international arena. Like, for example, Syrian Kurdish National Council. Everybody agrees that their power was even marginalized more and more recently. But on the other hand, through being in Geneva, through being in this kind of international platforms, SKNC is trying to influence increase its influence. So when this is a situation, it's very hard for Kurds to come under a joint national strategy. Kurds should achieve this. Kurds should realize that their national interests should be above everything else. But unfortunately, to this point, I don't see this. I tried to write this in my articles. So I'm trying to say that Kurds' biggest chance is that they stand united. They stand together. At least in some points, in some common points, they can unite and they can promote these things. But so far, this is not happening. So there are talkings going on, there are agreements, but this is not implemented. So if really, I hosted a show yesterday, and we spoke about Geneva as well. Until now, really, Kurdish issue has not been discussed, not been mentioned. The attitude is that there are urgent things, and Kurdish issue will be discussed later on, as if the long-suffered, long-oppressed Kurdish people's situation is not important enough. But that really depends. I think it's Kurds to blame. If you are there and if you are not promoting, it means the weakness is on your side. So rather than criticizing other side, I always want ask Kurds to focus on their shortcomings, their failures. And in my view, as long as Kurds continue in this way, their plight will not be heard. Their plight will be muted. So that's really depending on Kurds to make their voices be heard. Kurds to tell the international community what they can offer, what are they already offering, and what they stand for.
We are running out of time. Mutlu Sivrioglu, journalist and analyst on Kurdish affairs. You've been with us from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much for speaking to Ronahi. So, as we mentioned, the first round of peace talks aimed at ending the civil war in Syria has ended without any significant breakthrough, as rival sides blamed each other for lack of progress. However, UN envoy Akhdar al-Brahimi said he had seen some common ground and scheduled more talks for 10th of February.
United Nations Arab League envoy to Syria Akhdar al-Brahimi said on Friday that while talks between Syria's regime and opposition had made slim progress, they had raised hopes for a solution to the country's civil war.
Wherever such need exists in the country, we hope they will act on this and on the issue of detainees, the kidnapped and the disappeared. 9, both sides recognize that the safety and security of all in Syria must be preserved and assured, along with the continued functioning and reform of state institutions and public services. And 10, each side stated in no uncertain terms that they reject violent extremism and terrorism. As I said in the beginning, this is my assessment of where I see the parties basically saying the same thing or almost the same thing. And I hope that we can start to build more common ground when we next meet in Geneva. We will now have a short break in the negotiations to allow the sides to prepare their more detailed positions on the issues raised already and on all other aspects of the Geneva communique. I suggested we resume on the basis of an agreed agenda that we are going to prepare and send to them, that we meet on the 10th of February. The delegation of the opposition agreed to this date. That of the government said they needed to consult with Damascus first.
Syrian Foreign Minister Walid al-Muallim said there had been no tangible results for two reasons: the lack of seriousness from the opposition and their insistence on focusing on one issue. On its part, Syria's opposition spokesman Lu'ay Safi told the press on Friday, "There is no way there could be progress without establishing a governing transitional body with authority to deal with political and military matters."
BYD's co-chair Saleh Muslim gave his views on the exclusion of Kurds as a separate delegation from the Geneva peace talks and the factors that played role in the failure of the first round talks.
And we think the starting of Geneva negotiations, as happened, is not really because we were expecting to be collapsed, not to have any results. And that's happened after the first round. And if they don't change the second round, the third round, maybe we'll have Geneva 2, Geneva 3, Geneva 4, and Geneva 10 without any results. So they have to change their mind to look for the actual powers, what they are on the ground, and they have to join these discussions. They have to be in Geneva 2. So if you just exclude the Kurds, it means you cannot solve it, because we think that the Kurdish issue in Syria is the mother of all problems of Syria. It was feeding the dictatorship, the Ba'athist regime. They were just saying, the Kurds are dangerous for the unity and dangerous for Syria, so they kept us away, they excluded us, and then what happened, everybody is seeing. So we don't regime excluding the Kurds again. They should accept the Kurdish being, recognize their being constitutionally. That's what the Kurds are looking for. Constitutional recognition of their being and constitutional guarantees for their democratic rights.
The Islamic State of Iraq and Sham launched attacks to the west of Tel Abyad, aiming to gain control over the area. The village of Manajir of Sarikani also witnessed clashes between the Islamic State and People Defense Units, in which YPG fighters captured a tank and a large amount of arms and ammunition.
Clashes erupted between People Defense Units and the Islamic State of Iraq and Sham near Birkano village located west to Tel Abyad city of Rojava. The clashes came after the Islamic State started an operation aiming to control the area. According to People Defense Units, 2 members of the Islamic State of Iraq and Sham lost their lives. This operation west to Kobane coincided the mobilization of Turkish army on the Rojava northern Kurdistan border near the city of Tel Abyad. According to residents of Tel Abyad, Turkey mobilized heavy weaponry toward Rojava border. On the other hand, the Islamic State of Iraq and Sham attacked the town of Manajir in Sarikani region. The People Defense Units responded to the attack and captured a tank and a large amount of arms and ammunition from the Islamic State. Moreover, 30 members of the Islamic State and other armed group members were killed in the clashes. According to the People Defense Units, the armed groups attacked the wet depots in Manajir, 20 kilometers from Sarikani city. In Kiswa suburb of Damascus, the Syrian army alongside with the national defense forces of the regime stormed houses of Kurds who left Damascus and headed to the stable Rojava. According to the residents of Kiswa, the national defense forces and the Syrian army are looting the properties of Kurds who left their houses and are pressuring on other Kurds to leave Damascus. Since the start of the clashes in Damascus, thousands of Kurds who moved to Damascus for labor turned back to Rojava.
Despite the world media is increasingly losing interest in the civil war in Syria and the fate of Christians in it, a Hungarian freelance journalist decided to shed more light on the situation of Christians in Rojava. Balin Slanko made a documentary named Christians Fight Back, in which he mentions that Christians and Kurds hand in hand are beating back the armed groups.
Here, the Islamists have been beaten back, but in other areas of Syria, their influence is on the rise. Most worried are the Christians, who constitute about 1/10 of Syria's population. It is estimated that nearly 450,000 Christians have already fled their home. But here, in the northeast of the country, where Kurdish groups have so far succeeded in keeping the Islamists out, many have chosen to resist. Mahjoub Abdulahad is a Christian glassmaker in the town of Ras Al Ain, not far from the front line between the Kurds and the Islamists. He is trying to rebuild a church that he says was damaged by the extremists.
هالبرجين كان فوق كل واحد صليب، كان بناء حديث يعني ما كان صاير له سنة معمرينه وملبسينه حجر. فتم قصفه من مدينة تل حلاف بالصواريخ الهاون وسقوط 6-7 أشهر تم، وتم ضرب هاي بعض القذائف ومعلمة مبين تم تكسير. هلا قام بعض الاشخاص من الطائفه وغير الطائفه بالتبرع.
Mr. Abdulahad emphasizes that his colleague is a Muslim.
وبنفس الوقت كمان صديقي اللي هو مسيحي، مع الاسف اقول مسيحي لاني قبل نحن ما كان نقول الكلام، كان يروح يشتغل بالجامع ويصلح بالجامع كمان.
تم تكسير البلور كله نتيجه اطلاق. كانوا موسخين العفو، حتى كانوا موسخين ضمن الكنيسه هون، قاعد موسخ من كثر ما هو يعرف الله ويعرف بيوت الله، كان اسلام ولا مسيحيين، فيدخل في بيت الله استغفر الله ويوسخ. فايش تترجى من هيك امي تقدر تعيش مع هيك بشر وتضل بهالبلد ان كان هن موجودين. ما دام هن موجودين على ارض السوريه راح 3/4 الشعب المسيحي والمسلم يهاجر من هون، مو بس المسيحي، لانه عم بيحاولوا تدمير هالبلد ويحاولوا يرجعوه على دور العثمانيين.
Here, the Islamists have been beaten back, but in other...
Let's move on now to the press review.
The Financial Times published an article entitled with Syria's Kurds Initiate Experiment in Self-Rule. The long-oppressed Kurdish minority in Syria has begun an experiment in self-rule that will shake up the balance of power in an already volatile Middle East and potentially complicate Geneva peace talks to end the country's civil war. This declaration is considered a historical event, said Nawaf Khalil, spokesman for the Democratic Union Party. While many regions in Syria are witnessing a major increase in brutality, Kurds, along with other ethnic groups, succeeded in collaborating and declaring an autonomous government. The online journal Nationalia published also an article about the self-rule administration of the 3 cantons of Rojava and said, Western Kurdistan completes process of autonomy declaration. All Western Kurdistan, under the control of the Kurdish forces, has now declared self-government. The American resident scholar for the American Enterprise Institute, Azem-Robin, wrote an article about the blockade on Rojava and said, Lift the blockade on Rojava. Rojava remains stoic even as its isolation is greater than the ever faced by Masoud Barzani and Jalal Talibani when establishing the Kurdistan regional government. Both initially had the assistance of the French, British and the Americans, which created a safe haven and operated a no-fly zone. Rojava, in contrast, neither enjoys a no-fly zone nor indeed an external protection. The Turkish government, fearing another Kurdish entity alongside its border, has imposed a blockade, and the civil war inside Syria cuts off resupply through that country. Aaron Tlund published his 5th piece in a series on the Islamic Front in the Guernica Endowment and described the group as the Islamic Front, widely seen as the largest alliance of rebels fighting Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. It has presented unified positions on a number of issues, but in one case the Islamic Front has had trouble with the Kurdish question. Nuray Mert wrote for Hurriyet Daily News and entitled her article with Kurds' Dangerous Game. Finally, apart from the matters of principle, it is a big miscalculation on behalf of Kurds to invest their hopes in the governing party, since it has lost enormous legitimacy on the domestic, regional and international fronts. Kurdish peace is a regional and even an international issue, as well as a domestic one, and no political government, suffering from all the weakness that the AKP is suffering, can afford to get involved in such a serious problem, let alone solve it.
That's all for this week. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.